estate question for you. Have you ever role played with your wife, Brad?
Wait a minute. How is this a real estate question?
Okay.
Just skip ahead to the part where you dress up like Little Bo Peep.
It's the staff that's expensive. My wife and I are going through an open house, and all of a sudden I decided in my head it's time for a little improv. And so, as a real estate agent is talking to me about just like showing, I don't know. But by the way, we're not looking for a house. We're just going through an open house. Right. It was just fun.
Well, yeah, sometimes it's just fun to see the insides of the houses and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun to sort of imagine what the people's lives were that lived there because very specific houses sometimes lead to a very specific life. Anyway, we're going through the open house. And my wife, Gloria, I go, Carol, hey, come on over. And my wife, I don't know how she did it, but she picked up on the fact that I was just like improving, right?
Yeah,
and she goes, What's that, Jim? And I go, Carol, come on over into this room. And the real estate goes, so what are you guys looking for? And I said, well, we've got the 6 kids, so it's a pretty busy life. And the guy goes, oh, you're looking for a 3-bedroom? And I go, well, they're all young. They're all below 8, so it's going to be a pretty young house. So they'll be bunked up in the bedrooms there.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, so do you work in the neighborhood? I go, well, I fly all around the world for the Department of Defense, so it's really it's an ongoing.
That's amazing.
It's like 5 minutes of me just creating a story of a life.
Yeah.
For what? Why was I doing this? The real estate agent was not at all confused. Like, it wasn't like I was throwing him for a loop. He was just like talking.
Yeah.
But suddenly Jim and Carol and their 6 kids.
Now, did your wife join in and start making a life for herself as well?
She did name a few of the kids to her credit. She was like, she's like, oh, this will be perfect for Michael and Matthew. This room, they'll love playing in here. But I got to tell you, Brad, it's a great way to do open houses. It makes everything so much zippier because you got to stay on your toes. You got to keep the improv muscles flexed. And I highly recommend a little improv with the wife in a real estate open house.
Well, I mean, that is kind of a fun, creativity challenge.
It is.
Like you've got to really be on top of your toes to do something like that. And I think I would break. I don't think I'd be a good partner for that. But you guys sound like you did it just wonderfully.
Well, if she started calling you Greg, would you know to respond with a fake name of Marjorie or something?
Oh, yeah. That I would pick up on. Yeah.
Would you know to start creating a false life if she started creating a false life? Would you? How good at improv are you, basically, is what I'm asking.
I'm telling you, I could do it. I could absolutely do it. Yeah, I believe me. A lot of times when people ask me what I do for a living, instead of, like I said before, if I don't want to get into a conversation with them, I won't say cartoonist because a lot of times that just opens up conversation. So when I tell them that I'm a life insurance salesman, things shut right down, and it's another successful improv.
Yeah, well, as an actuary, I have to tell you, Brad, it's an exciting time for me to say hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the editor of the Webcomics Handbook and the creator of Evil Inc.
And I'm his friend Dave Kellett, or rather Jim, Department of Defense employee. I'm his friend Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of the comics documentary Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. On this, the 402nd episode now? What are we on now these days?
We're up to, I think, 402 now. We're well into September, believe it or not. It's hard to believe this year it's going by fast, just as fast as the first 400 episodes went.
It is flying by. It's flying by like improv at a real estate open house, Brad. That's what I say. But Bradley, I've got our first question coming in for you over at patreon.com/comiclab. And I will remind folks that don't know about it, every week we record a second episode just for Patreon pals called ProTips. And we've got a especially good one this week. Here's the question that's coming in from Shep, and it says, "Hi, Comics Commodores. I'm in the early stages of creating a comic inspired by you fine chaps and need to draw some word balloons of people shouting and whispering.
Yeah.
I've had a look at the guidelines on the Blambot website and had a play with different styles, such as spiky balloons for shouting and broken border balloons for whispering. But I don't think they look as good as just a regular style balloon with bigger, bold lettering for shouting and smaller lettering for whispering.
Yeah.
Are there any styles that you fellows would recommend? Many thanks in advance. This is coming in from Shep. So thank you, Shep, for that question. And Bradley, what answer do you have for Shep on shouting and whispering?
That little Susan MacTaggart snuck in there for a minute. So I'm going to give Shep some, here's the thing. Here's my problem with giving Shep advice. Shep is somebody in the very early stages of comics. And so they were smart enough when they came up to this situation to say, hey, I'm going to see what an expert in lettering says I should do. That was smart.
That is smart.
And then they read what Nate Piekos, who has spent more time thinking about lettering than you, me, and Shep put together. And he said, oh, you should do this and then you should do that. And then Shep didn't take that advice. Instead, Shep, who's just started on his journey, said, well, I think this looks better. And being an artist means saying, I think it should be this way. I think it should be that way. But since you're at the very beginning of your journey, you haven't built an aesthetic yet. And so I'm going to give it. So the one way of looking at it, Dave, is why should we give him advice? He's already gotten advice from the best and he's not willing to listen to that. Why would we give him advice on how to do it? I'm going to give you more important advice, Shep, from a guy that I can guarantee you, if I had gotten this advice 20 years ago, I would not have been smart enough to listen to it. Maybe you'll be smart enough to listen to it.
Oh, I'm fascinated now. What is this?
When somebody who's been doing this for a long time says, here's how you can do it. You should do it this way. You should do it that way. And go along and build that and learn from that instead of saying, I think it looks better this way and that way, because here's where you're going to get into problems. When you're making your type larger to do a shout, fantastic. I actually think that there's nothing wrong with that within reason, and there's lots of ways you can do it. Once you get to the part where you're making the lettering smaller for a whisper, now you're harming your legibility. And there's nothing more important than legibility in a comic. They won't read your comic if they can't read your comic. And that, since you're just at the very beginning of your journey, you don't know that yet. You haven't done enough comics to know that. That's why my advice is when someone like Nate Piekos talks to you about lettering, and you're at the very beginning of your journey, until you've got 500, 600, 1,000 comics under your belt, I would listen to Nate. He knows what he's talking about. Because if you go with, I think it looks better, and make that type smaller, you're screwing with your legibility, and there are big problems with that.
Yeah, I can't find any fault with what Brad has just said. And I will say, too, that there are certain conventions, some of which are weird, let's just say, in the 100 years of comics that have established and gone forward. Some of which we are slowly incorporating in from the manga systems of writing out a comic. But one of them that seems to have survived 100 years is that for shouting specifically, a larger, bolder, slightly curved or energetically lined bit of text that is ensconced in a balloon that is itself energetic, sometimes spiky, sometimes wiggly, sometimes electric, sometimes snowy. You can imagine all the different effects that you've seen put onto a balloon. Yeah. But where the balloon itself has energy and the lettering has energy, that 1-2 punch has kind of a pretty rock solid 100-year track record of trying to communicate yelling. Yeah. Because the arcing of the lettering versus a horizontal line, the arcing of the lettering indicates the sort of lilting of a human voice that's yelling, right? Yeah. And the letter forms being bolder themselves and easier to read help reinforce that this is a loud voice. Literally, the clarity of the writing, the clarity of the imprint of the lettering is echoing the clarity of someone yelling. You cannot miss someone yelling in a small room, just like you cannot miss yelling text being presented on a page because it's so big, right? Yeah. There's a 1-2 that's absolutely causal there in terms of why it's done that way. And then the word balloon itself is basically to indicate difference. Yeah. Like, in many respects, a word balloon, much like bordering, should disappear into the background when it's done well. Yeah. Your mind shouldn't really acknowledge it as a huge part of the composition, right? It exists. It has a very specific purpose. When it's done well, it should a little tiny bit mentally disappear into the background, right? And so what you're doing with a spiky word balloon is you're saying, no, this is a moment where it's a differentiation. It's a point of difference from the rest of the comic. Yeah. And you need to acknowledge as a reader that this character is yelling, this character is exclaiming, this character is screaming. Mm-hmm. And so the word balloon, with whatever energy you want to put on it, and Brad and I could talk about 40 different ways of putting energy on it, that is to indicate differentiation, not sameness, not disappearing into the background. Am I right, Brad?
You're absolutely right. And let's take the converse of that now, a whisper, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing I said was, hey, don't mess with your legibility. Well, there's another way you can do a whisper that gives you that same effect of making it look like the type is smaller without actually making the type smaller. You make the word balloon bigger. Right.
Yes.
And if you've got
negative
a word,
space,
yes, it's a brilliant way to do this. In that, if you make the word balloon too big for the text, you don't have to actually change the size of your text. It's going to look smaller because it's got an overly large border, an interior border around that text, and it is going to have the effect of making it look smaller.
And I just want to build on that because that's such a brilliant insight, Brad. What are you literally saying? You're saying that your words are not taking up space. Literally, that is what you're saying.
Yes.
And if you think about what a whisper is doing, a whisper is not taking up space, right? A yell is taking up space and demanding that it be seen. Yeah. But when you put, like Brad said, a lot of negative space around a thing, it is not taking up space.
Yeah. And here's what I would not do. I would, again, anything that impedes the legibility, right? So you'll see a lot of pro-am cartoonists do a whisper in gray lettering. Well, gray lettering screws with your legibility, even if it's a little bit. For me, it's a line you don't cross. You find another way to do it. I don't like gray type. I don't like smaller type. This is a situation where every now and again, I will use, since all of my lettering in Evil Ink is all caps, I will, if I want to do a whisper or if I want to change to a Soto voice, I will do upper and lowercase, right? But that's going to sound like a change in voice. But since I'm doing upper and lowercase, I actually bump the point size up 0.5 point to a point. And it still looks like a change in voice. It still looks like a softer voice, even a whisper, because it goes from all caps to upper and lower. But I'll actually make the type larger. Why? Because upper and lower lettering needs more size to be seen clearly by your eyes, especially, again, once you get it on smaller screens and stuff like that. So I'll do something like that. But I'll actually make that type larger, and it's still going to look smaller because it's upper and lower case as opposed to all caps.
So I'm going to tell on myself. For whispers, first of all, Brad is correct. I want you to listen to what Brad just said. Don't listen to what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
But listen to what, as a beginner, I want you to listen to what Brad just said. Yeah. So now I've been cartooning 25 years, and I will say that I do occasionally use both grayscale and slightly smaller fonts. Yeah. But here's the thing. I know when to use them. Yes. I know the print tolerances of how I do drive and what number I need. The number I need to get to on the grayscale before that lettering drops too much visually on the page, right? Yeah. And so I've done 4.5 books now with Drive, and I know exactly what print percentage I have to be at. I also know what the tolerance is size-wise in final print when that comic goes to print. So what I'm saying here is this is not a recommendation for you to do. I'm just telling on myself that after 25 years, I do allow myself. And even then, I want you to remember, I use it as a spice. It is never for a lot of text. It's usually for like a single word. No. Like if someone is whispering, no, then I will allow them a slightly smaller font in a bigger field, like Brad says, because your eye cannot miss it. And I use a grayscale that I know from trial and error will print well as a sufficiently contrasted dark gray, not black and not a mid-tone gray, that the eye will be able to read it. So that's a huge caveat that comes after years and years and years of cartooning. And again, listen to Brad, don't listen to me. I'm just telling on myself because you're going to see it in my work and you're going to be like, well, Dave does it in Drive. Well, it's because I have tested what works and I know what can succeed there.
Yeah. And you brought up another point that's really important in this conversation, and that's word count. Right? If you were saying that you had a 1 or 2 word
makes a huge difference. Yes.
That, and you said, oh, I'm going to do that in gray, I wouldn't say boo about that. That'd be like,
he wouldn't say boo. I need a little bell that I can ring whenever he says it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our Midwesternism. All right, here we go.
I wouldn't be concerned about that. More than that, I don't want to see in gray. But a low word count, I'd hand wave that away.
Like Brad and I always say about special effects fonts, and this you should consider a special effects fonts when you're doing a whispering like this, is that it is an amuse bouche. It is a spice that you sprinkle. You cannot do a lot of text in this because it also goes against what you're trying to do, which is to make it feel special. If everything is special, then nothing is special, if you know what I mean.
I can't agree with that.
It has to be a spice. What's that?
I can't agree with that strongly enough. If everything is special, then nothing is special is a really important concept to understand.
So now let's talk about things that Brad and I haven't talked about in terms of separate from the word balloon, separate from the lettering itself. Let's talk about gesture and facial expressions.
Oh, please.
A lot of people will try to let the lettering do 100% of the work, which for some specific jokes or moments you might need, where a character is trying to hide a whisper so the face looks normal, the posture looks normal, but the whisper is doing the heavy lifting. But don't forget, gesture can be really key here. A mouth on the side of the thing can help, intimate a whisper and just as good as a whisper can. There's a lot of tricks there. I will also say, too, that manga and mid-century American comics had a lot of sort of ephemera around a word balloon to imply excitement. I think Mort Walker had all sorts of stupid made-up words for it, but manga specifically seems to lean towards 3 energetic lines that indicate out from the word balloon, or sometimes a giant exclamation point that floats next to or above the word balloon. I've always found that interesting. That seems to be a new innovation that's creeping its way into American comics. And then there's a billion little individual facial tics that manga has to indicate, embarrassment, excited embarrassment, embarrassment in a group, embarrassment. It always seems to be embarrassment. But anyway, you know what I mean? So there's tiny little, what would you describe them as, Brad?
I was just thinking as you were describing it, I would describe them as, if you're being honest, very close to emojis. In fact, what I want to do is it would be fun to do. I don't want to spend the time doing it, but I'd love to see somebody as emoji use grew, whether those side, because you also will see like a happy face or so, you'll
literally see a little chibi version sometimes of their own face next to a word balloon. Yeah.
And so I'd love to see if, as emoji use grew, if that effect in comics also started to come up, because it's very much the same kind of thing.
Right. So then moving further out into the panel, other things you can do. Obviously, color choices make a big difference in terms of expressing big, energetic, exclamatory energy or tiny, controlled, not taking up space, whisper energy, right? Speed lines, depending if you are a fan of speed lines, can also be used for high energy moments. I can't really think of a speed line that is whisper appropriate.
No, not so much.
But honestly, sometimes teeny tiny little bubbles can help indicate whisper energy, I'm just thinking of ephemera around a space.
I also I like that original tip that Nate gave, which was the broken line word balloon, right? Like drawing the word balloon with the dotted line.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I thought that I was taking that as a given, but you're right. Yes, that one's a great one.
That boom does the trick. There's some point at this where like again, and I'm not putting our question asker down, because as I said at the very beginning, saying I think it should be this way is the core of what it means to be an artist, right? And so to tell you to go against that when you're at the beginning of your journey is very difficult. And again, hopefully this guy's smart enough to listen to it, because I guarantee you I wasn't smart enough to listen to it. But sometimes don't reinvent the wheel. That dotted line word balloon does the trick. You don't need to reinvent that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just do it. Yeah.
And again, the reason why it has worked and the reason why it has stuck around and the reason why, especially as you're beginning, you don't need to reinvent the wheel is it works because it's a successful visual metaphor. Yeah. And so what does the broken, dotted, imperfect line of a whisper word balloon do? It basically imports that the breath is not at full force, right? Yeah. It is broken. It's whispery. It's faltering a little bit, right? And that's what that broken word balloon implies. What does the spikes of an energetic yelling balloon? It kind of is a visual metaphor for explosion or for TNT going off. Or anytime you use electricity, it implies that a room itself has gotten a little electric because someone is exclaiming. And you can feel that sometimes. And so all these visual metaphors work because smarter cartoonists than you and I in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s came up with these. Other ones confirmed it in their own work by use. And so it has become established because they are great visual metaphors.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one of those things that we're going to tell you, especially when you're at the beginning. Keep it simple. Take some of these people that are giving you advice and use that and learn. This also goes back, by the way, Dave, where we've had this conversation a long time ago where somebody said, well, rules were made to be broken, and they go hustling right off to break all the rules, right?
Yeah.
And what we said during the show was, yes, rules are made to be broken, but you cannot skip the part where you learn the rule. First, you have to learn the rule. You have to learn why the rule is a rule in the first place. And you have to learn how to implement the rule effectively. Yes. Then you can break it.
It's actually one of my critiques of a lot of modern painting is they go... Yes. Painters go straight to trying to create their Guernica without having gone through their blue period. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to learn how to paint realistically first before you go into the nonsense. So in some respects, you have to learn why comics do things a certain way before you put your own spin on it. And listen, just my last bit of advice on this is that over the course of the next 2, 3, 5 years, you will make some exclamatory word balloons too big, too energetic. They'll feel more like they're coming out of an Iron Man than your comic, right? You'll make some whispers too small, too ineffective. They'll feel more like they're in a Nancy than in your comic. Right. But by trying different variations and different extremes, you'll slowly find a workable middle that fits with your style, fits with your worldview, fits with the tone of your comic. And that's okay. So don't beat yourself up over that. If you're like, boy, that exclamatory word balloon was way too big or this whisper was too small. You'll get there. It just is a matter of experimentation.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe it. I didn't think I'd hear that music again, but here's the music that says only one thing could be happening. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare your chakras and center your vibes, because entering the Comic Lab studio, I'm so excited, on a radiant beam of self-belief and highly flammable essential oils, it's the one, the only Susan MacTaggart.
Bradley, John, so excited to be back here with you on the Comic Lab Podcast. How are you, Bradley, John? How are you?
Oh, you know what? We just got done talking. You probably don't know this, Susan. We just got talking about whisper balloons, and I love it because actually when you whisper, I can actually see the whisper balloon in real time above your head.
Oh, Bradley, how you do go on? I must say, Bradley, I'm looking at this haircut. Absolutely tremendous. I love this new haircut on you. Did they decide to stop before they got to the nostrils?
No, I told them to give my nostrils that layered look for the ready-to-go disco look.
Yeah, well, Okay, that's a choice. I love it, Bradley. I love it. It's great.
Well,
so,
listen.
Bradley, before we get into the personal affirmation this week, I have a new book dropping from Penguin Random House, Bradley John, and I want to tell everybody about it. The book is called Taking Time for Self-Care, The Case for Wine with a Case of Wine. The new book from Susan MacTaggart, dropping this week from Penguin Random House.
That sounds like a great read. Actually, I can see myself reading that one. What is your favorite wine for self-care? Are you a Merlot girl? Are you a Chardonnay? What's your wine of choice?
My wine of choice, Bradley, is what's ever been poured in front of me. That's the new wine for Susan MacTaggart.
Well, listen, without my whining any longer over our book choices, we've actually got, believe it or not, a new person who is at the $10 Patreon level, and they deserve a personal affirmation. And you just wait till you hear this. This person's name is Cade Thunderdome.
Cade Thunderdome.
Cade
that sounds like my new romantasy that I've been writing on the side. Cade Thunderdome.
I'm hoping it's Cade. It's Cade. I'm hoping it's Cade and not like Charday was Sade. I'm hoping it's not Cade. But I'm assuming
I'll be
it's
honest,
Cade.
Bradley. Both Cade and Sade Thunderdome are both working. They're working,
Yeah.
Bradley John.
Yes.
Well, Cade, can I call you Sade? Let's call you Sade. Sade, let me tell you something. I have a little personal affirmation for you this week. I forgot about that podcast. I ran out of breath there for a second.
Okay. So you say you've got a personal affirmation for Cade.
I sure do. Sade, I want you to be all that you can be. See all that you can be. See all that you can see. And D all that you can D. That's a new alphabet book for morons from Susan MacTaggart, dropping next week from Penguin Random House. And Bradley John, I will say to you, as I say Ashante out the door, you're looking fabulous with your new haircut.
Thank
but
you.
next time, don't let them stop at the nostrils.
And there she goes, vanishing, my friends, onto a cloud of sandalwood and raw ambition. It's Susan MacTaggart giving us another soul-fortifying affirmation, and thank you for reminding us that all success is just a vision board away, assuming you don't get bored with your vision.
Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
Susan MacTaggart, ladies and gentlemen. Look at Dave. I can't believe it.
Missed her again, but I'm back, Brad, and I'm powered up with a question for you from patreon.com/comiclab. This one comes in and says, "Hi, Brad and Dave. Artists often work to up their artistic game, but can you reach a plateau? Oh, boy, can you? I believe in the creative urge to always improve, but I also feel like there's a legitimate argument for settling into a style that's replicatable because you're offering consistent good work that isn't costing you 100% of your ability. I've always appreciated your unique look at these kind of questions." So Bradley, number one is, are plateaus possible? And number two, is there a legitimate argument for settling into a plateau style that's replicatable? So Brad, a two-part question. First of all, I think the first one is inarguable. Are plateaus possible, Brad Geiger?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say inevitable. at some point you're going to plateau, and no matter how much you're putting into your stuff, eventually you're going to plateau. So are they possible? Yeah, they're possible. They're downright inevitable. And the way I've always traditionally looked at plateaus is that usually plateaus come just before a big burst of improvement. So like if I look back on my work and I see that I've hit a certain level and I've plateaued, if I keep reading that work in my archive, I'll see a point where all of a sudden I have this breakthrough. And it's like that whole time was almost like a caterpillar in a cocoon, like a chrysalis stage. And I needed that plateau to work through these issues, to think about issues, to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, and to beat my head against the wall, because that brought me to the point where I had a big push of improvement. And then, of course, there's another plateau that happens after that. So I've always had a very kind of positive outlook on plateaus. However, when I hear, is there a legitimate argument for settling into a style that's replicatable because you're offering consistent work that isn't costing you 100% of your ability? When I read that sentence, I have trouble signing off on that. And I don't know why that is. When you read that, how did you feel about that part of the conversation?
I see your hesitation, because to me there was a tiny element of like, that's good enough. You know what I mean?
Good enough. Yeah.
That's what it sounded like. And listen, are there days where every artist goes, that's good enough. Yep. I gotta go pick up the kids from school, or that's good enough. I'm working through this flu. This is good enough for today. Right. Yes, of course. But I think both Brad and I are hesitating because we don't necessarily want to encourage that kind of thinking, even though we as humans fall into it every once in a while ourselves. But in general, like Brad, I agree that plateaus are not only possible, I think they are likely. Yeah. And I think for me, a plateau normally represents a past breakthrough where I suddenly feel confident in a new way of doing things. Let's just say it's like inking a certain kind of line style, right?
Yeah.
And I suddenly break through and I go, oh, it works. And it does work. It's demonstrable. The breakthrough works. It's working for my line art. It's working for my writing. It's whatever you want to talk about it, but it's working. And so what ends up happening as I then start to incorporate that on a regular basis into my art, right? Yeah. That new thing that I figured out how to do now gets incorporated all the time. And over the course of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, what ends up happening is I go from being excited about that breakthrough to kind of becoming lazy and my attitude towards it changes such that I just expect it to work without examining on a continuing basis. Is it needed? Is it still working? Does it need to be adjusted? And in so doing, my work plateaus. And that's a single example. It happens usually with 30 or 40 things that are sprinkled throughout your work that you're incorporating at any given time. Yeah. But let's just say it's one thing. And so you make the breakthrough, you incorporate the new thing in your work for that first week, that first month. It's very exciting. It's working. You're really loving it. 18 months down the line, you check back in and you're still incorporating that new breakthrough in your work, but now it's more work a day. And now you know how to use it and it's not really that exciting. And so maybe your lack of excitement is starting to filter into the work, because if you're not excited, they're not excited. Yeah. And so what was a breakthrough somewhat becomes a lazy trick that you're leaning on. Yeah. Right, Brad?
Yeah. No, I agree. And
I'm throwing myself under the bus there. I'm not saying that I'm immune to that, you know.
No, I agree. We had another question in the hopper about plateaus, and it fits so nicely into the point that I think you're making there that I can't resist throwing it in.
The point I think you're making there.
It's not an exact one-to-one, but if I'm hearing you right, then the other question that I'm just going to pitch to you is basically, have I plateaued too long? In other words, is it possible for someone to plateau for too long? And if so, what thoughts do we have for that person? Does that, because especially when I heard you say, 12 months, 18 months and so forth, What would your thoughts to that be under these frameworks that you and I are talking about?
Well, part of it is, Brad, have you ever driven from Philadelphia to upstate Pennsylvania?
Yes.
And for a good chunk of the ride, you have no memory of driving.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You, as a competent driver, got yourself there. You were safe the entire time, but your brain was not registering, was not taking in new information because it was a drive that you're so familiar with that your brain actually goes, meh, we don't need to register any of this.
Yeah.
We don't need to remember any of this.
Yeah.
And a version of that can start to happen long after a plateau. Brad Geiger, Dave Kellett sits down to draw their comic. And all of a sudden it's done. And at no point during the process were you really examining how you were doing it, right?
Yeah.
I'm throwing myself under the bus.
Yeah.
I know this has happened.
I'm laughing because out of familiarity. Yeah.
I'm looking down at the comic and I go, I didn't question anything this entire drawing. I was listening more to the podcast than paying attention to what I was doing.
Yep.
I was listening to God knows what music
autopilot. And your hand was on autopilot.
Right. And because I'm 25 years in now, my hand can go on autopilot. And it could happen even at the 5-year point. I'm not saying that it's a year's thing. I'm just saying. So I think part of what happens once you make the breakthrough and once the breakthrough is stopping to be exciting, it slowly transforms into familiarity and a little bit laziness because you're not actively drawing. You're passively drawing, which is a weird thing to say, but it's true. You can, much like a driver gets to upstate Pennsylvania without remembering driving, you can get to the end of a comic without remembering cartooning.
Yeah. No. I think you're absolutely right. So here's the difficult part. If it's possible to plateau for too long, what do you do about it?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what I do. And you've done it as well, is you have to change things up. You have to challenge yourself. You have to introduce a new variable.
Yes.
For some people, that's going to be new art supplies. For other people, if you're purely digital, new brushes, new techniques, new styles of approaching digital. For Brad and I, it has sometimes been entirely new projects that you have to try. Like if you are currently doing a long form superhero based comic, let's do some short form single panel comics in a 1950s style. If you've been doing a comic strip about a kid and his duck for 25 years, maybe do anatomy comics that are single panel and do 10 jokes to one image, that kind of thing. You get where I'm going here is that it's the change that's important. You have to throw in a new variable or else you will just keep repeating that same plateau.
Yes.
But in time, Brad, haven't you found that having either tried new materials, tried new techniques, or tried new projects, it actually ends up rolling back into the original thing that had reached a plateau and therefore bringing you through a new breakthrough, which is lovely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think your answer is 100% on target. If you feel that you've plateaued for too long, then the obvious answer there is you need to challenge yourself, right? Because if you go back to that original thing where I talked about the chrysalis effect of plateauing, and you're subconsciously working through things, and then all of a sudden you have a breakthrough and you shoot up. If that's not happening, and you feel as if it's been far too long, then you need to kickstart that a little bit by challenging yourself. Well, what's that going to do? So let's say, again, in the chrysalis, your subconscious is working out art challenges or writing challenges or whatever, and you're not breaking through. Then you have to take charge and give yourself some conscious challenges, not subconscious, but conscious. And again, that goes into what you just got done talking about. That's a big reason that I started doing single panel comics for my Patreon. I needed to get better at sharpening, shortening, making my humor more concise. I could see that I was resting on my laurels because I knew I could make something funny happen in 7 panels. When I switched over from a 4-panel comic strip to a full page, half of my page is very much like if you look at European comics, it's like Asterix, right? Where you've got a lot of panels on a page. Well, 7 panels, I've got lots of time and I've been doing it long enough that I can make the story advance and I can hit a punchline without it feeling like it's crammed into 4 panels, right? But I could see I was resting on my laurels. It was like, hey, you need to sharpen up your humor writing. And the only way to do that is, for me, was through a single panel comic where you just have one image and one caption. Again, if you're trying to force more than that into a single panel, unless it's a really special circumstance, you're probably not doing it right. You can't have, word balloons and images and a caption. That very rarely works. There's some instances, but it's rare. You got to be honest with yourself about that. So I needed to sharpen my humor, and that was the way that I challenged myself and still challenge myself to do that, right? It was just something I needed to do. So I would take that subconscious challenge that you've got that has you plateaued, and I would make it a conscious challenge. And that means just doing everything Dave just got done saying, finding something that you know that you're not great at and incorporating that as a way to say, now I'm going to get better at it.
Yeah. First of all, that was fun to hear that was sort of a challenge that you presented to yourself, because nothing will give you a crucible like a single panel comic in terms of having to refine your writing. Yeah. I mean, for those that have listened to the writers' rooms that Brad and I have done for Patreon, where we take in a half an hour, we take an idea and try to refine it. Boy, you will never see two guys work harder with sweat on their brow than us trying to refine a single line of dialogue to encapsulate everything that a single panel comic needs. It's crystallization of comics, and it's so hard to do. But yes, it's a great way to challenge yourself. And I'll tell on myself, because I think it's helpful to share the plateaus that we're both feeling. So Brad was feeling that he was having a writing plateau, so he challenged himself with single panel comics. Right now, I feel like my digital art, my writing's great, right? I'm feeling good about my writing. My digital art, I'm feeling okay about. But I'll be honest that I feel like my inked art on Sheldon has plateaued in a way that I'm very not happy with. To the point that I feel like, and I haven't done it in a couple of years, I need to start rolling a sable brush back into my...
Oh, interesting.
That Alaska episode really reminded me, like, no, there were a couple of years there where I was really using sable well.
Yeah.
The problem is, and this is just telling on myself, it's human laziness.
Yeah.
It takes me longer to prep, longer to draw, and longer to clean up after using sable, you know, because the inkwell, the brush, the separate piece of paper, the little, all the nonsense that you need to draw old school. But Brad, the art is better. It's demonstrably better when I use a variable line sable brush versus a hyper clean Pitt or Faber-Castell type pen. And when I'm finding my line art in my inked comics to be boring, that's when I know I need to get back to a brush for a while.
Wow, that's interesting. And that was the episode, if people want to go back and listen to kind of an important moment in your progress there. That was Jared Green's show on Comic Lab, right? When you went to Alaska and did an interview with
Jared
that
does
person.
Wonderful work with a brush. And was very kind in teaching a class, as we always do at Alaska, to fellow artists. And I really appreciated Jaren's insight and advice and teaching. And it just sort of re-sparked in me, like, dang it, no. So here's the two things. Here's the challenges because I've plateaued. Here's the challenges that I've given myself in my art. Because we were talking before that you have to consciously choose, like, no, I have plateaued, and how do I get out of this plateau? My two conscious choices that I'm making right now is to try to incorporate more fields of black into my inked comics.
Yes.
And we can talk about that, but we don't need to right now. But it's a very specific kind of a choice. Is I need more high contrast, dark fields of black that of sufficient size in my comic strip. And then I think I need to incorporate more brushwork to make the line more lively again.
Yeah.
Because it's gotten a little boring. I've gotten so good that it's gotten lazy, if you know what I mean.
Interesting.
In terms of how I can control a pen. So, anyway, that's my two challenges for myself. Brad's challenge has been the single panel, which has been working wonderfully, and your writing is the best it's ever been, I think. But to finish off for this question asker, Brad. So So plateaus are normal. Plateaus are natural. Plateaus are going to happen.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, it's going to feel wonderful to be in the plateau for the first couple weeks, first couple months, maybe even, let's be honest, maybe for a year or two. It's nice to get to a plateau. But I think both Brad and I would argue there is a danger, right, Brad, in staying there too long.
I think so. For my way of thinking, there is, because it means that you've meant. I don't want to say you. I'll say me. If I was in that situation for too long, I would feel as if the danger is that I was starting to mentally check out from the process, like you were saying about the driving.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that would be, hey, you need to tune back in, because you're never at least maybe it happens to some people. It doesn't seem to happen with me. I'm never at a spot where I feel like I'm good enough. There's always
it's
little
always
bit
5 to 10 years out,
go.
isn't it?
Yeah. So if you were self-satisfied with a plateau, my feeling towards me was, I'd say, I don't like that concept for me very much. I want to be moving on to the next challenge, because I know that's where my best work happens. And I can say that for a fact. My best work happens when I have a challenge in front of me. I can tell the pages that I've done for Evil Inc. where there was nothing new there for me to conquer. Right.
Yes.
It was a good page, that the writing was good. The execution was good, but there was no new challenges on that page. And as a result, that page, I can tell, is just a little bit lacking of a spark of something.
God, I'm lighting up at you saying that, because you're right. It's about having no new things to conquer. Yeah. And so for you, and probably for the audience, there is less of a spark on that page, right?
Maybe, yeah. No, I mean, and the only reason I say maybe is not because I don't want to admit that could be true, but because I was so taken aback when you said, Sheldon hasn't been, up to my standard. I haven't felt good about it. I think I need to kick it in the pants and blah, blah, blah. Because I'm an ardent Sheldon reader, and I hadn't picked up on that, right? So,
but the converse might be true too. Like the page where you said I didn't have anything to conquer on this Evil Inc.
Right.
I, as a reader of Evil Inc., might have been like, I love this page. I thought this page was great.
Right.
But you have to listen to and acknowledge those moments as an artist about your own work, because that's your heart saying, I'm ready for a breakthrough.
Well, and I will even go further and to suggest that that's how people like you and me stave off burnout. Because
go on with that. What do you mean?
It's harder to be burnt out when you and by the way, I haven't thought this all the way through, so tell me if I'm full of shit. But my thought is, one of the ways that I've been able to avoid serious burnout in my career is that I'm always anxious to get to the next challenge.
Yeah.
I'm always anxious to conquer the next mountain, to get to the next place, to do the next thing. It doesn't always mean that it's easy. Doesn't always there's lots of challenges. I've been in a weird mental space over the past couple of weeks, just starting the Kickstarter that I'm hopefully going to be launching soon. We'll be talking about on the show. But I was telling my wife, I should have started a month ago. I just can't bring myself to do it because there's all of this ancillary stuff hanging over top of it that wasn't there before. For example, tariffs and likewise challenges, right? Right. So I'm not going to say that I don't have dumb stuff happening between my ears. I absolutely do. But in terms of burnout, I haven't faced that particular issue as much. And part of that might, with a capital M, might be that I'm always focused on the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, I was talking with a friend recently about Schultz and how did we think that he avoided burnout over 50 years.
Yeah.
And first of all, he probably didn't. But, I'm sure he had moments where he was like, to heck with this. But my response to burnout in my career is similar to yours, Brad, where in the moments where I felt my worst burnout, which was, I think, around the 10-year mark of Sheldon.
Yeah.
It's not an accident that within a year or two of that, I started making a documentary film and I started making a long form sci-fi comic that nobody was asking for from me, right?
Yeah.
Because you need a new challenge in order to keep the spark going. And what was lovely in time is, and I think Brad will attest to this, there have been times where I've been like, do I wrap it up on Sheldon? But having other things to work on, new challenges, new vistas, actually kind of re-sparked on certain days the Sheldon. And so I found that just with the reduced output, I still loved it just as much.
Yes.
In fact, it presented challenges that no other type of comic could give me. So why not keep it going with joy, you know? But what I'm saying is, to Brad's point, is that the next thing, the new thing, is what's been salvific for moments of burnout, because the change, the challenge, the new thing to conquer is what keeps burnout at bay, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's kind of where my head is at when it comes to that. And by the way, again, all of this has been part of the public conversation on the Comic Lab podcast. There is a point in the show. I remember getting to that point in the show where you were like, "Yep, I'm going to end Sheldon. Here's my plan to end it. It's going to end this way." You know, you had conceptualized it verbally at one point during the show. And there was one point where it was a fact that Sheldon was coming to an end, and then a couple of weeks later, you had there was something that switched in your head, and now we weren't talking about that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I'm thankful that I didn't, because I could have restarted it, but it's been a continuing joy in my adult life to do it. And what I found in time was that I needed a new balance with new projects. And in so doing, when there were new things in the mix, the love for Sheldon was still there. It just didn't have a Sauron-like laser-like focus on it. Yeah. You know, like I don't know why I'm thinking of the Eye of Sauron looking at something, but when it was one part of a salad that was my career and not the sole lettuce, you know what I mean? Then it had less weight on it in a way that emotionally was balanced for my creativity. And so it worked out fine. So what I needed to do was I needed to keep doing Drive. I needed to do anatomy books. Mm-hmm. I needed to do the podcast. I needed to do The Wrong Way with Kevin and Brad. Yeah. And in so doing, in that salad, Sheldon fit quite well, because what else could be done that Sheldon could do? Nothing. Drive can't do what Sheldon can do. Right. And so I'm happy that I kept it in the mix. But anyway, I don't know how we fell on this, but you're right. Change and challenges and new things to conquer are what stave off burnout for you and I. Yeah,
I think there's some truth to that. Before we run out of time, I wanted to make sure we had a little bit of an opportunity to check in on the Comic Lab social media challenge.
Yes,
we talked about it last time.
Yes.
And so for those of you who might be joining us late in the conversation, the challenge is you take the major social media apps off your phone. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, that might include Blue Sky, it might include TikTok. Basically, it's the things that become the time sink. That's the main part of the social media challenge. Bonus points and one of the side challenges is to go to bed with the phone on the other side of the room, so you're not picking it up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But let's focus right now on the first part of the challenge. Taking the apps off, and did that make a difference? How did that go?
Yep. So as Brad was doing, brief recap, I took off the Reddit app, I took off the Blue Sky app, took off Instagram, and I kept Discord on because it has a more of a community purpose for my comics and projects. Right. Brad, the increase in my productivity was almost instantaneous. Yeah. And this has been an imperfect week, but first week, but already my life is healthier than it was. The time wasted is infinitely less. It's still there, and I'll tell you why in certain ways, but it was so telling to me that the day I did it, I found that my hand kept going back to where the social media apps were whenever I had a moment to sit down. Mm-hmm. And it was such an eye-opening, like, what the hell are you doing?
Yes.
What a waste of time is this, And so, like, for example, yesterday, Brad, I got 3 comics done yesterday. Ask me the last time I got 3 comics done in one day, right? And so separate from that, I've just had busy days, and yet I'm still managing to get everything done. So wholehearted endorsement, gang, if you have not done it yet, to take the Comic Lab Social Media Challenge. And here's the second part to the 1-2 punch that is the Social Media Challenge. Brad on ProTips recommended to me a service called buffer.com. It's a paid service. You can do it for free to try it out, but it's a paid service.
Like $5 a month or something.
Yeah. And here's what that $5 a month buys me. It buys me clarity. It buys me time. It buys me focus, because I can schedule out, and we're already doing it, scheduling out weeks in advance for Sheldon, for Drive, for Wrong Way, for Comic Lab, all my Blue Sky posts. And then once a day, or by an email reminder at the end of the day that the company can send me, I can see how everything did. I don't need to be checking in on Blue Sky, like, how's it going? Are people liking it? Do people enjoy the comic that I did? Because like everyone else listening, when you put something on social media, you always want to check how it did, because we're social creatures and we want to know how we're in the pecking order. And it's so stupid, but we do it. And what's nice about this is I can check it once a day. I get a clear example of how it's doing and feedback, and I love it. So, Brad, so far on week 1, the social media challenge is going great. And I thank you for issuing it to me, because it's great. I will say there were 2 nights where I kept my phone on the other side of the room, too.
Hey, wait a minute. That's a huge breakthrough.
Well, I love how infantile it makes me sound. But
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Listen, there's a whole bunch of people listening to us right now who could not do that, let alone, like an entire week. But that's huge.
So I set up a charging stand. I set up a charging stand on the opposite side of the room.
Good for you.
And I'll tell you what happened on the 2 nights that I did it.
Yeah.
Brad, God damn it, I got a better night's sleep.
Yes, you did. I
went to bed quicker.
Yep.
I fell asleep and I stayed asleep. And when I did wake up, perhaps to go to the bathroom, I didn't have a stupid, blue light in my face for 5 minutes that then caused a half an hour of not going to sleep. So I'm not there. I'm not saying that I'm there yet, or I'm God's precious little angel in terms of doing it every night. But 2 nights this past week I did it, and it worked. By God, it worked.
I'm proud of you. No, all kidding aside, and just to tie this conversation up with a bow, the number 1 question we get on this show, we get this question more than any other category of question, and it's time management.
Yes.
There is and it's number 1 by a long shot. Every one of our listeners wants to know how to get better at time management. Please, Brad and Dave, talk about time management. Here's your time management. Take the social media off your phone and put it on the other side of the room when you're going to sleep.
To bed.
That 2-punch method, because number 1, you'll have more time in your day, automatic. And number 2, you will have had a good night's sleep last night, so you'll be much more able to be in the position of, like Dave did, putting those 3 comics out, or putting out a larger volume of work, or a higher quality of work, because you will have had a good night's sleep the night before. If you were one of the hundreds of people that sent us a question over the last 7 years about time management, this is your answer. We can sit around and run in circles about the Pomodoro technique and this and that, and make a list and post-it notes. And they're all well and good. Yep. But you take that social media off your phone and get a good night's sleep, you will be amazed at the time management that you're capable of.
And listen, is it easy to say and hard to do? Yeah, kind of. It is kind of easy to say and hard to do. But I will say, after 1 week, I have a demonstrable improvement in my time management, and frankly, probably my mental health and my focus.
Yeah.
in terms of there's sort of that casino thing of like ding, 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 bing, 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 come check out the bright lights, kind of an aspect to social media. And it's not there. Now, listen, I'm not saying I'm the perfect little angel at this. No, I've so far not reinstalled them, which will be a real point of weakness and failure if I do.
I'm just going to say right off the bat, since I was raised Catholic, I'm going to give you a dispensation because you're just about to get on an airplane to come to the East Coast for
you know what? I'm really going to try not to do it on the flight because
I was giving myself permission to put them back on my phone for the train ride.
I appreciate the papal dispensation, but I don't need it because think of the writing and the planning that I can get done on a 4.5-hour flight to Boston.
True.
You and I both know if with a notebook in front of us, just a pen and a notebook, how much writing we could get done.
And just to get good and bored. Just creativity happens when you're good and bored.
Honestly, this cannot be said enough. We have said it before on the show, but it can't be said enough. Boredom is such a key part of the creative process.
Yeah.
It is so undersold in terms of its importance, but you have to let your brain get bored.
Yeah.
And if you constantly are feeding it casino-like noises and sounds that is social media, your brain is not getting good and bored. Boredom forces your brain to entertain itself. And when it entertains itself, it tells jokes, it creates stories, it makes up characters, it makes up situations, 40% of which is nonsense, but 60% of which might be useful. Hell, even if it's only 10%. So,
again, just like go back to paint the wall red, right? We had a whole bunch of people who were ready to paint their wall red because maybe it was going to give them a 5% uptick in creativity, right?
Yeah.
This you could see this paying dividends that are exponentially bigger than that.
Right. And so this is to tie it to the plateau thing.
Yeah.
This boredom is different than the boredom that happens when you're unconsciously creating comics and not really. That's a different kind of boredom. That's more of a laziness, of a checking out, of unconsciously creating. What the boredom that I'm talking about is there is nothing that is sparking for your brain. There's no shiny object. There's nothing that it can passively take in like TV or video games, right? And so your brain says, I'm going to make up my own stories. I'm going to make up my own characters. I'm going to make up a joke for this situation. Hey, this dentist waiting office is boring. Guess what? Let's make it fun. And then you start creating things. And Brad's laughing because he knows that it's true. He knows his brain does it too. But you got to let it get bored in order for your brain to create.
Yeah, that's right. You've got boredom is super important. But there's one thing that we've done our part, and that's we've helped to keep the last hour from being boring for you. But there always comes a time where we've got to say that you've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
I would rate that transition as like a 4, maybe a 5.
You know what? I wasn't quite bored enough.
God, I enjoy you. Your hosts have been my friend Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and the handsome co-host of the new drawing show over at wrongwayshow.com.
And my close personal friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com, and another one of the happy, avuncular, handsome co-hosts of the drawing show at wrongwayshow.com.
And the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode and all episodes were edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, and we know that you do, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, where we are burning up those podcast charts.
And Comic Lab is made possible by your support at patreon.com/Comic Lab. So we'll go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/Plateau.
It's so funny that plateau is like a French word that ends in 4 vowels. Isn't it? EAU 3 vowels.
Yes, yeah.
It's just
Plateau.
it's such a fancy word for such a kind of humdrum situation. Like no one's like, oh, hey, I'm on a plateau. It's just they had to make it French to make it sound better than it is.
Have you ever been up to the plateaus of Montana and Wyoming?
No. Are they good?
They go on forever. Well, I think the word is kind of intimating what you're looking at, which is plateau. Quick, Francois, bring in some more vowels. We need this to go on longer. Plateau.
Oh, thanks.
Francois, where are the vowels I asked for? I'm in Montana. It's going too long. I don't know what my French became Italian there at the end. What happened?
It's me, Francois.
Hey, it's me, Mario. I'm in Montana. Hey, we got to save the princess.